Welcome everybody to another episode of Recreation Rooster, a podcast for health and wellness enthusiasts. I'm Dan Chialvo once again, and this is my co-host Maisha Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7, which will air on February the 12th, right before Valentine's Day, of a Recreation Rooster podcast. This is our second month in publication, and we're so happy to be here. Let's go ahead and get started with our quote of the day, Dan.
Indeed, I'm going to start with the quote of the day. Indeed, therapeutic recreation allows individuals to discover their abilities, strengths, and passions. Unknown. Wow,
Love
I like
that.
that. Yeah. Therapeutic recreation allows individuals to discover their abilities, strengths, and passions. So
Wow,
that's
I love
pretty
that.
awesome. Mm.
Ability, strengths, and passions. And when I think of that, especially being a recreation therapist, I think of how we utilize our interventions and modalities to aid people in discovering things they never knew they were capable of doing. Also, I love the fact that unlike many other professions, we are strength based. So, oftentimes, when we are speaking with our clients or speaking to other colleagues, members of the interdisciplinary team about the client's progress, we do get to highlight the strengths and not just the weaknesses or the problem list. So that is definitely something that I really love to embrace when I'm in clinical settings. And then, of course, passions, things that give us joy, things that make us look forward to the next day and the next day. Missions that we might be passionate about that we find purpose and meaning in, and that whole intrinsic motivation of just having that fiery sense of purpose and meaning and mission in life. So yes, I love that quote. That's a great quote.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, just thinking about the roots of recreational therapy, it's really a profession where we're always creating and recreating ourselves. So, and that's kind of what we do, starting at a very, very young age. We're always creating and then recreating our abilities, strengths, and passions. So, that's very much a big part of what we do and a big part of the nature of the profession. So,
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And next up, guys, we'll have our next segment, the song of the day.
indeed, yeah, and that is End of the Line by the Traveling Wilburys. Now, that's just a very feel-good song that, it's all right, riding around in the breeze. Well, it's all right. If you live the life you please, well, it's all right. Doing the best you can, and it's all right. We're going to the end of the line. So basically, I mean, a lot of it is, what do you call it? Exactly. It's all really, yeah, that's a feel good song, and it also kind of sends a good message, kind of like same thing as last week with Bob Marley and the Wailers. Um, you know that it's all right, and I mean, uh, appreciating being present in the little things, riding around in the breeze. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Uh-huh.
sense of gratitude too. I mean, oftentimes we do find ourselves wallowing in our despair, but oftentimes, especially in the recovery and the rehabilitation model of treatment, finding out where you are and then taking each day as a new day to make yourself better and more improved, and then acknowledging your achievements along the way, your progress. So I really love that you chose this song here by the Traveling Wilburys, End of the Line. And I do encourage each and every RT to, hey, have that song that empowers you and really primes you up to create great programming for your clients on the way to work, in your office, and even sharing it with the clients. You know, Oftentimes exploring new music genres as well that delivers an uplifting message is so exciting and fun to do just in general. So yes, I do love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And our next segment is pushing forward. Actionable steps to improve the viability and success in the profession. So, with that being said, the first thing that I could think of was career day. I remember when I was a child, and then I would go to career, and I would be at school, and then people's parents would come to campus and talk about, stand in front of the class and talk about what they did for a living and how exciting it was. It really empowered me to want to explore, and I never once had a recreation therapist come to my class.
Me either.
However, as a child, I did have journalists, firefighters, police officers, teachers, lawyers, right, doctors come to the class, even physical therapists come to the class. So, and I remember the impression that it left upon me. I know that I wanted to be a journalist. When I became older, that was one of the professions that I was very interested in doing because I always enjoyed communicating with others. And now, with me being a recreation therapist, I do feel as though every day I get to be a journalist when we do reality orientation right after fitness programming, where we talk about the events of the day. That are happening on the unit in the community and nationally or globally with clients. So I'm still fulfilling that role. But I do feel like one actionable step that we can take as recreation therapists is going out into your respective communities, your community centers, your schools, and participating in career day where your children are at. And if you even don't have children, calling the principal at your local school and participating in career day, calling the community college and participating in community in profession health fairs, calling your university or the deans at your RT or even other departments or schools of learning with that in certain universities that may not have anything to do with recreation therapy. And then having a recreation therapist go out there for the professional development or career fair, career and health fairs, even if they don't have an RT program there. As we know, more and more RT programs are shutting down and being absorbed by sports management and different other programs, right? So this is a great actionable push that we can utilize to let people know that guess what? We are a viable profession and that we are needed in the community. And strength is definitely in numbers. And even though we may be small in numbers in comparison to some of our counterparts, we are a viable service. We are a viable profession and discipline. And I mean, and another thing to think of is oftentimes, the value asset that we have in being specialized but being smaller in numbers can actually be a benefit sometimes because it creates a high demand for the services. And as we know, as mentioned in a previous episode of Recreation Rooster podcast, in year 2030, the baby boomer generation will be in full flux of retirement age. There will be an influx of new clientele for us to service within our wheelhouse. And with that being said, now is the time for us to have this actionable plan to advocate for the viability and the success of the profession. And like I was mentioning before, one way is for us to get out there and to talk about our profession at career days, at at take your daughter to work day, take your son to work days, at professional health fairs, at your colleges and universities. So get out there, wear your gear, speak about what you do and why it is so amazing. And let's try our best to continue to sustain our programs that are already in place, make them even better and to expand our reach. So, yes, that is pushing forward.
Yeah, definitely, and that's some yeah, some good advocacy right there. Sure.
Yes. So, next up, guys, we have another segment, and our segment is Behind the Numbers. So, on this segment, I really wanted to highlight the demographics of the profession, meaning how do we improve the diversity and inclusion within the profession? Okay. So, I wanted to quote a couple of stats that we have from Zippia.com regarding the profession. So at this time, there are 4,044 recreation therapists currently employed in the United States. 72.5% of all recreation therapists are women, while 27.5% are men. On average, the average age of a recreation therapist is 43 years old. The most common ethnicity of recreation therapists is white at 74.7%, followed by Hispanic or Latino at 10%, Black or African American at 6.5%, and unknown at 4.5%. The earning potential in a recreation therapist is women earn 98% of what men earn in the profession. And 9% of all recreation therapists identify with the LGBTQ community. Also, another thing to mention is recreation therapists are usually hired in the private sector. So 79% of all recreation therapists that are hired in the US are in the private sector in comparison to government entities. So with that being said, I wanted to address just an even bigger issue here of diversity and inclusion when it comes to ensuring that our POC recreation therapists, those that are non-white and non-Latino, well, no, also Latino, but non-white, are increased and improved. Are increased and encouraged to matriculate out of programming, get their credentials, and serve in the community. As we know, we do have several universities that have a high number of POC, meaning people of color, students that are aspiring RTs, like Temple University is one. So with that being said, let's just talk about how we can improve success when it comes to all RTs, but also targeting why so few are POC. I think this conversation is one that is a very diverse and I would say it can be sometimes very nuanced and complicated. But let's really, really talk about how to foster a network that helps us to build pipelines so that Black and Brown children who want to be RTs can get into the pipeline and get the mentorship, sponsorship, and encouragement to succeed and be successful, and the tools to succeed and be successful so that they also can aid us in serving such a diverse population that we work with in the community as we expand our reach. What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, and I mean, I work with a lot of people of color, a lot of particularly Spanish and Black communities, and I mean, I heard recently somebody say something like, um, the Spanish, I mean, the therapy and stuff that's for white people, and
Wow.
everything, and one of the what do you call it, a Spanish person, so that might be a perception, maybe that. Uh, and so that's part of the reason that maybe some people of color, I guess, I don't know if that's really true in African American communities, but I
It
mean, it
is.
sounds like it might be true in Spanish communities. So, yeah, and you're saying it is true too in African American communities
Yes.
that there is that perception. So that could be a factor in why people of color aren't as into the therapies, and that's really a shame because a lot of the people might be able to get help that they would actually really benefit from. But if there wasn't that kind of, I guess, stigma associated with our cultural barrier, like saying it's kind of more for white people. So, so that could be one of the factors. And I mean, of course, there's also a lack of knowledge. I mean, of course, I never even heard of recreational therapy myself until high school. I mean, until college. So until I was
Likewise.
midway through college. So that could be part of the reason that you know, you it's just also a profession that well, hopefully we could change it, but change that perspective, but not enough people know about it. So
I
that could be
agree.
another factor, just in general across the board. And I am Caucasian or whatever. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, nobody. That's the thing that uh, you were talking about, before career days and everything like that. We never had a recreational therapist represented at career days or anything like that. So it's a profession that is still growing. It's a profession that's misunderstood. People just think maybe that we're like just trying to do what the phys ed people do and roll out a basketball. And well, I mean, phys ed people do more than that, but I mean, just in general, uh, people think we major in recess. That's
Mm.
not really what our major is. So, a lot of people don't really understand what we do. So that's also, part of the reason that we created this podcast in the first place. So there's
That's
that.
right.
That's across the board. That's why a lot of young people, and like you were saying, some programs are shutting down, which is scary because it's a field that should be enhancing, that ought to be enhancing. So instead of having
Absolutely, I
programs shut
agree.
down. So, but of course, with regards to people of color specifically, that stigma is, and this is where we could even make more outreaches to the people of color because to overcome that perception that it's just for white people. So,
Right. And then also too, taking into strong consideration the number of students that actually matriculate that are in the recreation therapy program. Because what we see happening
yeah,
is many students of color may enter the program, but they're not completing the program, is what we are observing too in the collegiate settings as well. So, tackling and wrapping our head around why that is occurring, why that phenomena is happening is
mm,
another thing that it's another piece and it's very complicated,
right. Yeah, you
complex
were mentioning that. Yeah.
puzzle. And then also too taking into consideration the pay disparity. Oftentimes if majority of the RTs are white women, they oftentimes will be in a two-person household where two incomes are coming in and their income is may not be the primary income, as well. So that takes into strong consideration. Whereas oftentimes in POC households, that income of that woman or that male may be the primary income for the entire house. So sometimes you may have RTs that go into the programs at the university level, and then what they do is they pivot and they go over to PT or OT or another allied health discipline because the pay is more agreeable to what their needs are in their day-to-day life in their households. Oftentimes, we take that in consideration too. So there are a lot of different things to consider. And I think that you brought up a really, really good one regarding the stigma that is associated with therapies and how oftentimes persons might be steered more towards, the traditional medical and medical degrees like nursing, like medical doctor or physical assistant, or, different psychology, or they may be steered towards law, so lawyers or different attorneys and things like that um, in certain communities as well. So we definitely need to do a better job of not only creating exposure, but also empowering and equipping our students on the path as they become practitioners in the field of recreation therapy. So yeah, that was great. And we're going to delve into that a lot more. We just scratched the surface on that today. Our next segment is Below the Surface, where we talk about affinity groups and recreation subcultures. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, and today we're going to talk about motorcycle culture and motorcycle culture, which often a lot of the people who ride motorcycles often travel in groups. They have different races and events. You might see a lot of them on the road together. And I've often around here seen a lot of bikers, and they hang out at the same bars and clubs. And, a lot of that is about, the American tradition, which was also part of the reason that the automobile industry is so powerful. The notion of the open road in the car and how we kind of explore as Americans. And there's a whole thing with power and conquest, sexual conquest, and other kinds of conquests that bike that might be part of biker communities. The music, the hair, the you know, and everything. Uh, the what we do, the values, beliefs, and ideals of us are often, I would say, reinforced in our leisure time. And for them, that's those are values, beliefs, ideals that are kind of reinforced in their leisure time. Is the engagement in motorcycle culture. And oftentimes you have sometimes two people on a bike. Um, you know, uh, so I've seen a lot of that now, and there's certain bars and clubs and stuff that they hang out at afterwards. So, do you have any thoughts?
That is so true. I must admit, especially in the veteran culture, many VFWs and else lodges, they do oftentimes are hogs, meaning that they are Harley Davidson
Yes.
enthusiasts as well. I mean, it's something about being on an open road and letting that wind blow through your hair and then having those, very intimate moments with your partner where you guys are riding together into the sunset. Um, it's definitely an amazing type of subculture. And then oftentimes, you have those what I call weekend warriors where they work, they may work a regular 9 to 5 during the week, and then on the weekends they let
Yeah.
loose and they're free, free as a bird, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes. And then the media depicts them to be the tough guy, right? So it has a certain level of masculine machismo to it, which is very appealing to many cultures as well. So yes, I do know that at the VA we do have a virtual reality program where we actually put a headset on our veterans and it simulates them riding a motorcycle. So for that moment in time, bedside, they feel like they're back on their motorcycle again, where they may have had a polytrauma that has prevented them from experiencing that. So we love to be able to recapture those moments, and also to give other clients opportunity to experience new moments in motorcycle culture, utilizing virtual reality technology.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's great. That's absolutely great with regards to the what they have at the VA. Uh, VA VA is actually one of the places where recreational therapy was created
That's
originally in many ways. And they're the ones that still insist on hiring credentialed therapists and have a coherent recreational therapy department. So that's one of the things I know and like about VAs. And also, yeah, like she mentioned, Harley Davidson was one of the original product creators of Harley Davidson. There's others, I think Yamaha and BMW and other bikes that are made, but Harley Davidson and the HOGS is usually the main one. And actually, back I remember when I my first job in mental health, they were talking about that. I was shortly out of college. They were talking about at the orientation how Harley Davidson was one of the people that really listened to their frontline workers,
mm-hmm.
because they're the ones who intimately knew the problems and concerns of uh, making the product, and that's part of the reason that they were so successful for so long is
Wow.
by doing that. So that's and of course, by doing that, of course, your workers become what? They become more invested in, you know, the what they're doing if they feel like they have ownership of what they're doing. So, uh,
That
and,
is true.
and that's
Very
part
true.
of my strategy and stuff in management. So, mhm.
All right, guys. And next up, we should have our next segment, which is Cornering the Market. Successful tips for recreation therapy, private practices, or entrepreneurs in recreation therapy. So, first and foremost, I wanted to mention that being in private practice has always been a continuous evolution of making sure that you are competitive. And in one part of being competitive is knowing who your competition is and the assets that you have that delineate you from others, right? That will make a customer prefer you over others. And a part of defending your business and being competitive is knowing what your value statement is. Many people, they do encourage us as recreation therapists to not have multiple niches, but have, a select number of niches that you are very good at. And oftentimes, what I take into strong consideration when defending my business is to ensure that I have accountability and quality control mechanisms in place when it comes to what the finished product looks like and what the documentation or the written documents look like, the intellectual property. So strong emphasis is made on the facilitation of programming, meaning the operations of programming. Also, a strong emphasis is made on the intellectual property, meaning the manuals, the booklets, the report writing that is done. And then also another strong component of that is follow through, responsiveness, and sense of urgency. And then, of course, customer service skills, meaning being polite, being considerate, and being competent. These 3 to 4 things we focus on continuously throughout the year, and then we compare and contrast. So we look at the competition, and believe it or not, the competition is not other recreation therapists. Okay, so
Sure.
for the markets that we are tapping into. So you definitely go above and beyond. You do the extra work to produce a credible, um, satisfying product or service for your clients. And then you also do surveys with your clients to get their insights and their input into what they are looking forward to, how they felt about your programming, and you can do that anonymously as well. They can do it without mentioning names, and then you take that information and you make the necessary adjustments to your programming. Also, to understand while you're doing that, other businesses and other disciplines are doing that too. So it's always a one up, one up, one up, one up, one up, right? So every year you are to sharpen your tools and get more equipped, utilizing new technology, new best practices, and forecasting and foreseeing future interests that your clients may have. And then, of course, investing the time, energy, and money into pivoting into those different uncharted areas. So I would like to say that that right there is cornering the market, defending your business, and it is a continuous process. I know I just scratched the surface. We will continue to tease down into select details so that we can help you to be successful. Yes.
Absolutely. Very good. Very well said.
Yeah. And next up, we have another segment called The Therapist Friend, where we talk about clinical skills and competencies needed to be successful in the discipline. So, with that being said, I wanted to focus on one huge one that oftentimes has to do with procurement and logistics, and that is registration apps. As you guys know, oftentimes recreation therapists are tasked with not just doing one-to-one programming, but also weekly or monthly programming and special events. And with that being said, you oftentimes think about how do I go about grouping and managing large groups of people when it comes to scheduling programming, right? We all know that the old ways of doing it with Excel sheets is very laborious and it oftentimes is riddled with human error, right? So oftentimes what we want to do is you want to look into registration apps and encouraging your agencies to spend the money in getting these type of apps. There is and I don't want to endorse any one company. Recreation Therapy Rooster podcast. I mean, Recreation Rooster podcast doesn't want to endorse any one particular software at this time. However, I would suggest that it is definitely best practices as used in many parts in recreation, community rec, agencies, and it is something that should also be used in very large health systems. Um, these um, these softwares will aggregate and separate different groups of clients based on certain fields that you query fields that you put into place, and it will help you tremendously when it comes to doing any type of special events. I know at Greater Los Angeles VA, we had our first, our inaugural Adaptive Sports Day at Greater Los Angeles VA in September of 2023, and we were tasked with registering a large amount of vets throughout the Greater Los Angeles catchment area for this day, and slotting them into their preferred sports. And we had over 20 sports that was being facilitated that day. And some sports had morning sessions and afternoon sessions. And some sports had different, I would say, categories based on age of the veteran or accommodations, adaptive or inclusive accommodations that were needed for them to engage in specific sports at specific times. And then also, really giving the veteran the information needed to know which sport they were scheduled for the 9 o'clock slot or the 10:15 slot, or the 1 o'clock slot or the 2:15 slot. So being able to aggregate all of that information, utilizing registration software helps to be more efficient and more effective in the use of your staff, and it reduces confusion and errors as well. So I do encourage you to um, look into the registration and booking apps and softwares that work best for your area, your agency, and put in a proposal for it to be bought so that it can be used and licensed at your area. It will make your life so much better and so much easier. Trust you me. Okay, trust you me. And they have all different budgets for all different size of organizations, but registration apps and booking apps and software are the way to go now. Let's put the Excel sheets to the side.
Sure, yeah, and I feel like a lot of that is often very popular in like parks and recreation, community recreation type settings, which I almost feel like there there is definitely somewhat of a working relationship we often have with a lot of those people, but I almost feel like there's still not enough OTs actually in that space, even though
I
that's a
agree.
feel that. I mean, and since we really want to promote inclusion, that would be another great public space for artists to be in. Like you were saying, most of the people are in the artists are in the private sector. So to get in the public sector, there's nice things about the public working in the public sector. So that would be very good.
I
Uh,
agree. So
increase. Yeah.
yeah, regarding clinical skills and success in recreation therapy, just adopting some best practices regarding how we do logistics when it comes to setting up programmatic structure and ease of use for our clients when it comes to them registering for our programs. These registration apps and software are essential. They're essential to aid us into being better facilitators of programming and operations across the board. And then on the tail end of it, the evaluative tools that can be put into place when we're able to query this information and utilize it for our grants and for funding, for clinical documentation, for program evaluation is endless, it's limitless to the amount of benefits that these registration apps and software can have for the facilitation of recreation therapy. And next up, we will have a segment on the nuts and bolts where we talk about supplies, equipment, things that are utilized in TR. Go ahead, Dan.
Right. I'm trying to look at these notes. Which one did we pick for that?
We
Uh,
chose adaptive bowling ramps.
oh, right. That's right. Yeah, and that's actually something that, I mean, unless I was in this field, I wouldn't have really known about. But there are ramps that for, well, for people in wheelchairs or for little kids uh, who have trouble holding the ball, they could push the ball down a ramp, and that's a valuable way to include people in bowling. So, like, I mean, that's how older adults can do bowling. I mean, a lot of people might not even realize that older adults can do bowling, but with the ramp, I mean, people in wheelchairs, people with physical disabilities can do bowling. So that makes it much more accessible. So that's not even something that everybody's aware of. So that's big.
That's so true, and when you think about it, when you go into these bowling alleys, I mean, a lot of times you have to request the ramp and then they bring it out. It's not already out there, so it's not something that's seen at, in the mass market as far as one of the assistive devices, that oftentimes is used, to make bowling more inclusive. I know that I have used it for many, many years as a recreation therapist with my clients, and we've had a great experience. And I even think sometimes, um, even with the youth, I've seen ones that look like little crocodiles. They were so cute, type of thing. I really think that that's a great market too for RTs to go into regarding assistive devices. You have a lot of in assistive equipment. You have a lot of RTs that believe that that's outside of our scope of practice, but it is actually not. I know a handful of RTs that do innovations where their main focus is adaptive equipment that is used in leisure and sporting. Oftentimes I know in the OT, they do have an adaptive equipment and device specialization for home and daily living devices that are used in the home, school, and outside of the home as well. So it's definitely a niche that we need to look further into. I think it's a great way to get things patented with the government to send out for potential mass market purchasing and selling. It's a great way to make a whole lot of money, guys. And we're out there with the clients on a day-to-day basis. We see what they need and what they want and what they desire. We can be very innovative and really tap into those inventive skills that we have in our play in our head, and make things easier and more accessible for people on a grand scale. So thank you so much for the TR nuts and bolts. And last but not least, our last segment is the Recreation Rooster stamp of approval, where we acknowledge a person, place, organization that does amazing recreation therapy work. And I wanted to acknowledge the Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation System Center, which is based out of Downey, California. They have a very robust physical medicine program in place for veterans and non-veterans in the greater Los Angeles area. They oftentimes have clients that come from other parts of the nation as well. They've been acknowledged and received great accolades on a national level. They have an amazing recreation therapy program that is primarily focused on physical rehab. They do a considerable amount of co-treats with different disciplines across the integrated healthcare network as well. They do have a beautiful campus that has a gymnasium, state-of-the-art gymnasium, aquatics, everything you could think of. They have a wonderful endowment that is put into place through the foundation that is associated with this center as well. So they get to do all type of amazing programming, like ski trips during the winter, all types of adaptive summer programming, all type of adaptive cycling, and they are very vocal and very involved in the community when it comes to civic engagement. If you ever get a chance to visit a great physical rehab facility, visit Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center, and tell my colleague, Miss Christina Randall Webster, that I said hello. And that is our Recreation Rooster stamp of approval for this episode, episode 7, Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center. And with that being said, I want to thank you guys so much, our viewership, for tuning in with us today for our episode 7. This episode will air on February the 12th on YouTube. If you would like to like, follow, and share, we really appreciate it at Recreation Rooster. If you want to reach out to me direct, you can always reach out to me at maisha@recreationrooster.org. You can also reach out to me at through New Horizons Concierge Firm, which is a consulting and a staffing firm. And my number is 213-524-6925.
Yes, and I could be reached at Daniel@recreationrooster.org, Daniel@recreationrooster.org. I'm open to consulting. I have the Leisure Dan Consulting Services, 845-987-0104, 845-987-0104. I'm based in the New York City area, and feel free to check us out at www.recreationrooster.org, and feel free to support us, sure, as well.
Yes, and we will be seeing you at the upcoming Danny Petrie Rec Therapy Today winter conference. So we're looking forward to learning, sharing, and connecting with other recreation therapists on February the 17th at that conference. Have a great day. Bye.